All right, Chaudhry's Champions, we're back at it. Chapter 4 of Abe Lincoln at Last from the Magic Treehouse series by Mary Pope Osborne. And we're all waiting to see what happens next, right? Who is Tad and how is he friends with the president? Here we go. Chapter 4 is called Willie. Jack was horrified. Would the Secret Service arrest him along with Tad? Jack had to stop him. Suddenly, the president burst out laughing. He wrapped his hands around Tad's fists. "You little tadpole," he said. "You didn't scare me one bit." Then he started to tickle Tad. "Pa, don't, Pa, don't," Tad screamed and giggled and kicked. Pa, Jack thought. Abraham Lincoln is Tad's pa? Da-da-da-da, mystery solved. It's his kid. Abraham Lincoln is Tad's dad. Okay. The president laughed. He stopped tickling Tad and kissed the top of his head. "What are you doing in here, my boy?" he said. "Pa, me and Willie found a treehouse," and said Tad. "Did you know there was a treehouse here? 2 kids were in it, Jack and Annie. Jack said it belonged to them. I told him it was mine because it's in our yard. Isn't it mine, Pa?" Jack wanted to shout, "No, it's ours," but he was afraid to be caught under the bed. "Wait, what did you say their names were?" the president asked, sounding serious. "Jack and Annie?" "Yes," said Tad. "They came out of nowhere. Don't you think the treehouse is mine, Pa? Mine and Willie's?" "They came out of nowhere?" said the president. "And their names are Jack and Annie? Are you sure?" "Why doesn't Tad tell him I'm right here, under the bed?" Jack wondered. "Should I just crawl out?" "Yes, Pa, Jack and Annie," said Tad. "But I want to know about the treehouse. Do..." The door opened. "Mr. President, you must come at once," a man said briskly. "You are late for your first meeting." "Sorry, Mr. Nicolay," President Lincoln said. "I'll be right there." He stood up. "The crowd is growing restless, sir," Mr. Nicolay said. "Before you know it, they'll storm your bedroom." "Oh, they wouldn't dare," said the president, chuckling. "Not with my bodyguard here." He ruffled Tad's hair. "Come along, tadpole. Escort me to my new office down the hall." "But when will you come and see the treehouse, Pa?" Tad said as they started out of the door. "Perhaps when I take my horseback ride later," the president said. "I'd like to meet this Jack and Annie." The door closed and the room was quiet. "Tad forgot about me," Jack thought. He couldn't believe it. Then he realized he'd better get out of the president's bedroom. He started to crawl out from under the bed, but the door opened again, so he quickly crawled back. "Dust first," Jack heard a girl say. Then shake out the pillows and change the linens," another said. Jack could only see the black stockings and shoes of the 2 maids as they bustled around the room. "Now," he thought, "before they make the bed." He scrambled out and ran to the door. One of the girls screamed. Jack didn't look back. He threw open the door and headed for the stairs. As he bounded down the steps, one of the maids shrieked, "There was a boy under the bed!" Jack reached the bottom of the stairs and squeezed through the crowd until he found a nook off the hallway. He scrunched against the wall, then peeked around the corner to see if anyone was coming after him. Someone grabbed his arm. "Ah!" Jack yelled. "It's me," said Annie. "Where have you been? I've been looking all over for you." "I was upstairs in President Lincoln's bedroom," Jack said. "Tad made me go in there. Did you know that that President Lincoln is Tad and Willie's dad?" "That's what I was going to tell you. Willie introduced me to their mom," said Annie. "She was really nice. Those were all her relatives in the parlor." "Well, Tad tricked me into hiding under the bed, and I almost got caught," Jack said. And Dad didn't even remember I was there. He kept talking about the treehouse, saying it was his. Willie says Tad gets overly excited, said Annie. He can't help it. Plus, it's their very first week in the White House. Well, it was awful, said Jack. I was trapped under the president's bed. Annie giggled. You know, that's actually pretty funny, she said. Not really, said Jack. Don't worry, said Annie. Willie would have saved you. He told me to find you and then come upstairs to his dad's office, and he'll introduce us. It's on the second floor at the end of the hall. Okay, said Jack, sighing. I heard the president say he'd like to meet us. Really? Said Annie. Yep. When Tad told him about the treehouse and you and me, the president kept saying, Jack and Annie? Jack and Annie? Are you sure their names are Jack and Annie? That's weird, said Annie. But I'm glad he wants to meet us. Come on. Jack and Annie headed down the hallway and up the stairs. On the second floor, Jack kept his head down, just in case the maids were looking for him. Jack followed Annie down the hall toward a group of people standing outside a door. A skinny man with a small pointed beard was speaking to them. Ladies and gentlemen, please. I'm sorry, but only the names on my list can meet with the president today. Jack recognized the man's voice. That's Mr. Nicolay, he told Annie. Who are you to tell us we can't see the president? A woman in a pink bonnet asked Mr. Nicolay. I am President Lincoln's secretary, ma'am, Mr. Nicolay said sourly. And if you do not have an appointment, you must leave. Excuse me, Mr. Nicolay, but I believe that I am on your list, said a dignified man. He showed the secretary a piece of paper. The secretary checked the paper against his list. Of course, this way, Mr. Bennett, Mr. Nicolay said. He opened the door and nodded for Mr. Bennett to enter, then followed him inside. While the door was open, Jack and Annie peeked into the room. Abraham Lincoln was sitting at a long table. Tad was perched on his lap, fiddling with his dad's tie. Willie was studying a map on the wall, while the president was listening to one of the men at the table. Willie, Annie whispered loudly. This page has some pictures. Willie didn't hear, but Mr. Nicolay did. He rushed back out of the president's office. Willie! Annie shouted. Willie turned around just as Mr. Nicolay closed the door. That's how the chapter ends. Chapter 5 is called Leave Now. So I wonder what that's going to be about. But we will read that tomorrow, or maybe the day after, and see what happens next. This is getting really, really interesting. I hope you guys are enjoying it as well. All right, I will stop there. I hope you have a wonderful night, sleep well, and sweet dreams. Good night.